Guys, numerous reports in mainstream British newspapers. The Sun has reported that David Haye has an injury to his Achilles ahead of a fight with Tony Bellew this Saturday, and the Sun suggests that there's a bit of a question right now as to whether David Haye will participate in that fight. The Daily Express produced an article which again gives reference to this injury that David Haye is supposedly carrying on his Achilles. It very much does give the impression that David Haye is probably going to fight with this injury. It sounds like David Haye has been visiting a medical specialist in Germany, and potentially this is what Tony Bellew was referring to when he was saying at the press conference that he was aware that David Haye's body was breaking down. And to be fair to Tony Bellew, David Haye seems to have had injury problem after injury problem after injury problem. If this guy writes a biography one day, it's going to be something like head, shoulders, knees and toes, because every single part of his body you can think of has been cut, has been injured, etc. For fans of David Haye, for people who are looking forward to seeing him fighting guys like Anthony Joshua in future or Tyson Fury in future, it is something to bear in mind, that he has had multiple injuries, and every time he is getting ready for a major fight, he seems to pick up a new injury. So perhaps there is just some truth in what Tony Bellew is saying, that David Haye is now an older guy whose body is breaking down, and it's going to be difficult for him in the sport of boxing. I don't know. But regardless, it appears David Haye will be fighting on for this fight. It appears he'll be at the public workout tonight at the O2, which will give us a bit more of an indication as to his well-being. But it seems that he will be entering this fight with an injury. If David Haye was to pull out of this fight, it's hard to see him coming back from that. He's pulled out against Tyson Fury twice. He pulled out against Manuel Char. If he was to pull out against Tony Bellew, I'm afraid that the public perception, rightly or wrongly, would be that he's pulled out after getting a bit shaken up by what happened at the Liverpool press conference earlier on this week. I'm not saying that that's necessarily the truth, but I'm sure that's what a lot of people will be saying, and a lot of what the public perception will be should he pull out of this fight. Now, an Achilles injury, in terms of fighting on with it, I guess an Achilles injury can vary massively in terms of severity, depending on how the fight goes. And most of us, including myself, I did a prediction video last night, which is on the channel if you guys want to check it out. But most of us are predicting a fairly early blowout for David Haye. So maybe if this is legitimately a 1 or 2 round job, the Achilles injury won't actually be enforced. What I don't want to see is David Haye losing to Tony Bellew and then pulling out the Achilles injury as an excuse, like he did with his toe against Vladimir Klitschko. I think that would demonise him and alienate him with the public even more so than regular. So, that's just my thoughts on this issue. It seems that there is an injury in play. My instinct is that the fight is going to go ahead and the injury isn't going to lead to another David Haye pullout. And certainly look forward to the public workouts tonight to see how David Haye looks on the pads, and see and really trying to get an assessment of his well-being in the lead up to this fight on Saturday night. For Tony Bellew fans, for Tony Bellew himself, this can only be a confidence booster. Tony Bellew seemed to be growing in confidence as we get to the lead up of this fight. Potentially, he knew about this when he was referring to it at the press conference earlier on in the week, and he's seemingly been grasping at a lot of straws, Bellew, about the quality of Haye's recent opposition, about Haye being stopped by Carl Thompson over 10 years ago, etc, etc. And maybe one of those straws about Haye having a lot of injuries has actually become a very, very relevant factor in the lead up to this fight. So let me know your thoughts, people. What's your initial take on this fight? I have to say one other thing. 1 or 2 people I've seen online believe that this is promotion. They believe that the fight is so uncompetitive that this has been created in order to create the illusion that the fight is in some way more competitive, because an injured, immobile David Haye versus Tony Bellew is a more interesting fight than a fully fit David Haye versus Tony Bellew. Let me know your thoughts. Do you think David Haye could enter the ring with one leg, let alone 2 legs, with an Achilles injury and beat Tony Bellew? drop me a comment in the section below. As always, please hit subscribe if you're new or you haven't done so before. Do take the time to hit the thumbs up button as well. Thanks for watching.